I glanced at my phone screen, finding a message from my spouse. Dining with a client, will return home late. Usually I expect my wife to stay out late for work engagements. However, what puzzled me was the location of this dinner. It took place in my boss's office. After extending my hours at work by a couple checking delivery schedules for Winter Gardens community, I secured my office, donned my coat, and prepared to leave. The office was vacant and silent. As I approached Arthur Callahan's imposing office door, I heard a faint, tinkling laugh. Without intending to, I paused and listened. It was my wife, Helen, laughing, but why was she here so late? I sent her a text. "What's your location?" 20 seconds passed before I received the reply. "Dining with a client, will be home late." This was routine for her, but her being in this place at this time remained a mystery to me. Helen had been operating a landscaping business in new neighborhoods for some time and accumulated numerous clients, including our construction group. However, an anomaly puzzled me. The client dinner was scheduled to take place in my superior's office, at an empty building after work hours. Helen arrived home around 2 a.m. the following morning during breakfast. I inquired about her late return. My wife informed me that following her meeting with the client, she happened to encounter an old friend, Sarah, at a restaurant. They hadn't seen each other in a while and spent the rest of the night catching up. Strangely, around 8 p.m., I was nearby Arthur's office, and it seemed like your voice was emanating from there. I remarked without averting my gaze. Helen hesitated for a moment before responding. Indeed, she had visited Arthur's office. She needed to discuss some aspects of the project, and then attended an evening meeting. An evening meeting at 8 p.m., I persisted. "Feels like you're hiding something." Helen displayed a hint of irritation. "Listen, Mark, what is it that you need from me? I'm not going to detail every move I make." I chose not to escalate the disagreement. Instead, I merely bid my wife good day, grabbed my keys, and left for work. I parked in the designated spot, approached the security guard whom I was acquainted with. We exchanged some casual conversation before I subtly inquired about the time Helen had departed the previous night. After a brief pause, he looked at his computer screen. "She left around 10:30, he replied, meeting my gaze. Thus, Helen had been with Arthur in his office in an unoccupied building until 10:30. And later, Helen narrated to me the tale of unexpectedly bumping into Sarah and a late dinner. It could very well be the truth, but her story seemed peculiar to me. In the evening following work, I ventured to the parking lot and got in my vehicle. At that moment, Carter approached the car beside mine. He was our lead attorney. I spotted Carter, who gave me a warm greeting. We started chatting and opted for a shared dinner. We chose a steakhouse situated near the office. We both savored tender steaks and had a drink of beer. At 10 in the night, I set off for home, pondering over my chat with Carter. As I navigated through the Lake Mary district, Helen's white Lexus caught my eye parked curbside beside a spacious two-story house. I slowed down and drove past the front of the property. I was clueless about the purpose of this residence or what my wife was doing there at such an hour. I found a spot to park around the corner, pulled out my phone, and dialed her number. "Where are you?" I inquired. "On my way home. I'll be there shortly," she replied immediately. I hesitated, wanting to determine whether she would emerge alone or with another person. After 10 minutes, the house's front door swung open, and I noticed Helen and Arthur. Although it was dark, I made out him wrapping his arm around her waist and kissing her. She then entered the car. For several moments, Arthur remained near the door, observing her depart. In that instant, it became clear there was something beyond work between them. The red lights of her Lexus faded around the bend. I ignited the engine and returned home. I was still uncertain about what to tell her or even if speaking was necessary, for I had witnessed with my own eyes what previously I had merely suspected. Upon arrival, I informed Helen succinctly that I was weary after a demanding workday and retreated to the bedroom. A profound fatigue enveloped me, yet slumber eluded me. Rage, pain, and a vague bewilderment melded into one oppressive knot. I felt an impulse to descend immediately and compel her to confess, but I needed time to cool down and devise my next move. Perhaps consulting Carter first would be wise. At least he could examine the predicament with composure. I lay in the darkness, gazing at the ceiling, trying to organize my thoughts. 40 minutes later, the door gently creaked open and Helen entered, making an effort to keep quiet. "Are you awake?" she whispered, approaching the bed. "Any trouble at work today?" she inquired as her hand landed softly on my shoulder. This touch, once soothing, now elicited a dull annoyance from me. I remained still, feigning sleep. The following morning, I awoke early, needing to clear my mind after a restless night. Putting on my running shoes, I stepped outside for a run and returned an hour later, then took a shower. Upon exiting, I found Helen near the glass doors leading to the pool, engaged in a phone call. Her tone revealed it wasn't a professional conversation, but rather one with someone close. I hesitated to leave when I heard her mention Arthur's name. I stood frozen, unable to make out the full conversation, but that one phrase resonated distinctly. Arthur. Arthur, when is the founders' meeting? Are you planning to propose Mark as a partner? As per our agreement. The words immediately made me question what had just been said. It seemed she was advocating for me, suggesting I be given a partnership role in the group. Confused, I found myself in my bedroom, shutting the door tight and sitting on the bed's edge. 3 years ago, Helen introduced me to Arthur. Jobless then, he hired me as head of a construction crew within the group. Later, Arthur called me into his office, offering me the role of chief project manager, a significant career advancement at that time. I considered it a hard-earned recognition for years of dedication, countless hours on site, endless business trips and projects delivered on schedule. Yet, for the first time, I pondered, could my encounter with Arthur have been more than happenstance? Might it be that each promotion I've received at this company stemmed from a romantic relationship between key figures? Could Helen have manipulated these decisions? The notion left me unsettled. I perched on the edge of my bed, fixated on one point. The agony of Helen's deceit mingled with a sense of shame. I donned my clothes and commuted to work. Along the way, I pondered the possibility that if Helen and Arthur were indeed involved romantically, it might extend beyond their personal relationship. Determined to uncover the truth before Arthur announced me as a partner, I extended my work hours that very evening, once everyone else had departed. I logged into the financial system, locating Helen's agency. The initial contract, signed by Arthur, dated back 5 years. These musings consumed me after work. In the following days, I examined all contracts related to our projects involving Helen's company, then scrutinized the invoices, estimates, and payment records of those deals. Analyzed competition rates of her firm alongside other contractors, correlated updates, projects, and costs. Discovered that her company often received contracts at prices significantly above market average, with Arthur approving most of them. Gathered documents such as contracts, invoices, and payment records for analysis. By week's end, compiled enough evidence to uncover a major revelation. Helen was not merely Arthur's lover. They were exploiting their relationship for mutual profit. Learned from Carter that the partner meeting was scheduled at month-end. With 2 weeks remaining, I retained a private investigator and provided necessary details, including a photo of Helen and Arthur and the Lake Mary address where I had observed them together. Upon receiving the video recordings 2 weeks later, their overt relationship became clear to me. They acted with little discretion, their actions far from secretive. I glanced at the calendar. Only 2 days remained. If Arthur truly intended to introduce me to the board of founders, I was more than prepared. On Monday at 10 a.m., I entered the conference room. Already seated were all 10 senior partners around the imposing white marble table. At the head sat Arthur Callahan, lounging comfortably in his leather chair. Upon my arrival, he offered a broad smile and motioned for me to sit. "Gentlemen," Arthur stated briskly, "before we proceed with the agenda, I wish to announce an essential decision. Our chief project manager, Mark, has demonstrated loyalty to the company for years. Today, I suggest we bring him aboard as a partner in our group." The partners murmured their approval. The elder one called for order, requesting a vote. "Let's vote, gentlemen," he said. Immediately, all 10 hands shot up. "Unanimous," the senior partner declared. Looking at me, Arthur stated, "Mark, upon signing the documents, the decision becomes immediate. You join our group as a partner." With a victorious grin, he awaited my response. Rising slowly from my chair, I said, "Thank you for your faith in me. However, before we proceed, there are some documents that require attention." Pulling out my briefcase, I placed a folder on the table. "What's inside this, Mark?" Arthur queried. "It contains contracts with Helen Brooks' landscaping agency from the past 5 years," I responded carefully. Comparing various contracts, I noted an average inflation of 40% in prices. The partners began to exchange looks. Then I took out my phone and continued. "Given that Arthur and Helen Brooks share more than just business ties, you'll find these videos intriguing." The room fell silent. I glanced at Arthur. His complexion had turned ashen. Following this meeting, we'll deal with the partnership paperwork, I stated composedly, addressing the other partners politely before departing at a measured pace towards the exit. Afterward, I was utterly drained and thus drove home in my car. About an hour later, Helen arrived, her arrival signaled by the irritated slamming of her Lexus's door and brisk entrance into the house. "What have you done before our business partners?" she yelled from the doorway. "Arthur called me. Have you lost your senses? You've destroyed my company. You've undone everything I built over the years." Sitting in a chair, I watched her fume in silence. The heaviness that had enveloped me dissipated, leaving an icy calm replacing it. "Mark, why are you quiet?" Her voice was laced with urgency bordering on panic. "What warrant do you have to investigate me and scrutinize my contracts? This is just business as usual." The videos from Lake Mary are based on misunderstanding. There's no secret relationship involved. Arthur was merely assisting me with large orders for our mutual benefit. Then she made a remark intending to wound my pride. "Or do you think you achieved your position and partnership due to merit? You would have remained an ordinary builder until retirement." Instead, her words exposed her true feelings towards me. Today, 10 senior partners unanimously voted for me. They require a competent builder, not a thief. I stated this. Now they will thoroughly examine all contracts between the group and your company. As your spouse, I've already initiated divorce proceedings. Helen fell silent. For a few moments, she just stared at me, trying to gauge whether my words were truthful. "You've already made up your mind?" she inquired. I remained silent. I stood from the chair and ascended the stairs. The following day, I visited the office and approached Carter for discussion. He recounted the conclusion of the previous day's meeting. Following my departure, the partners requested clarification from Arthur. Despite his attempts to justify himself, they decided to relieve him of his president position temporarily during the comprehensive review. "It seems his tenure with this company is over," Carter noted, leaning back in his chair. "Partners rarely forgive such actions." I merely nodded. My attention, however, was focused on a different matter. Inquiring about Helen's contracts, I learned they had been paused. All new payments have been suspended until the review concludes, and it appears even existing agreements will be terminated as well. As for my partnership, Carter smirked. "Given yesterday's events, there should be no doubt in your mind. You are a partner." Upon exiting Carter's office, my phone signaled with a message from Helen. "Let's discuss rationally. We need to talk." At 7 in the evening, I arrived home to find Helen's Lexus parked in the driveway. After shutting off the engine and spending a few moments in silence, I made my way to the kitchen where Helen was seated at the bar counter with a glass of mineral water. "Hi," she whispered as I placed my keys on the console. "Would you like something to eat? I prepared lasagna." I declined, explaining that I wasn't hungry. "You wanted to talk, I'm listening," she continued. Helen moved closer and took a seat in the chair facing me. She studied me intently, as if measuring her words. "Mark, let's keep things straightforward," she started calmly. "I need to discuss what happened between you and Arthur at that meeting. It's a convoluted tale, but for now, this conversation is about business. Since your actions at the gathering, they've frozen all my active contracts, which means my firm is losing money. If things go wrong, our family finances will also suffer. You're still paying off the mortgage on this house." She remained silent as I spoke. "Helen, you're not comprehending fully. Our joint finances no longer exist, and your contracts weren't frozen due to my relocation. The audit uncovered significant irregularities in the business transactions between your firm and the group." She squinted at me. "What's your solution then?" she asked. "Engaging in a public feud that benefits neither of us. You still have ties to this company, Mark. This scandal isn't beneficial for you either." "There won't be a scandal," I replied calmly. "My suggestion is for you to keep the firm while I retain the house and winter garden. We can divide the rest amicably and move on from this." She stared at me for a moment before asking, "What if I refuse?" "Then the court will handle everything," I answered. She looked down. After a moment of silence, she said, "Fine, I'll sign." I nodded. There was no more conversation to be had between us. A few weeks later, we officially divorced. Helen retained control of the firm, while the house and winter garden remained with me. The assessment of her contractual obligations within the group proceeded without my involvement. Thus concluded our narrative. I trust you found this tale engaging. What were your thoughts on the conclusion? If you had been the protagonist, would you have acted similarly or opted for a different course? Share your opinions below. Don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing tales to come.